In this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about guides and rulers in Illustrator, which are non-printing parts of our document that we can use to align and arrange other elements in our document. So first, we've actually been using guides this entire time because by default, Illustrator has smart guides enabled. As I drag this around, as I'm drawing this rectangle, you notice that it will snap to certain parts of my document. For instance, right here it's snapping and aligning to the center point of my document. These magenta lines are just showing me little smart guides that I can use to help line up elements. Now we can also build custom guides quite easily in Illustrator. It's very easy to do. I simply click off. I'm going to use my selection tool, and my properties panel should change to the default Edit Artboards panel. Over here there's a couple different rulers and grids options, which we'll go through in a second, and there are some guide options. I'm going to go ahead and turn on rulers and grids. Whenever I turn on this ruler right here, it gives me a ruler at the top and on the left hand side of my screen. This ruler right now is showing me here's the 0 mark and here's the 500 mark. This is a 500 by 500 point document. If I right click the ruler, I can change the unit of measurement. So I could say inches, pixels, all sorts of different things. Now, because this is vector-based, these don't really matter. They're just for you. So I'm going to use pixels just because I think it's convenient to start at 0 and end at 500. So if we wanted to rearrange this ruler, let's say we wanted our 0 point to be in the middle or something, I can drag this left-hand corner, and wherever I drop it, so right now it's snapping to the center, it's now reset my ruler to be 0 and 0 at the center. So now it goes to 250 over here and 250 over here, 250 up here, and 250 down here. If I want to reset that, I simply double-click this corner, and it'll reset back to 0, 0. So to actually make a non-printing guide, all I have to do is double-click anywhere on this ruler, and it will place a guide at that point. So I've double-clicked, and now it's placed this cyan guide. Now this won't print, and whenever you save your document, it's not going to show on if you save it for a screen or any other format. These are just used to align your other elements. So we've placed one guide. Let's grab the rectangle tool. And now whenever I draw, it will snap to that guide. Let's place another guide here. I'm going to just delete that. So I just go to the point that I want to place it at, and I simply double click. I double clicked, and now it's placed this other cyan line. I can grab my rectangle tool, and it's just automatically snapping to those points. To modify a guide, I need to make sure that they're unlocked. You can find that over here on the right hand side. There's the guides button. This middle one locks and unlocks guides. So if they're unlocked, I can grab and drag these around, modify them. If they are locked, then I can't select them or change them in any way. So to delete guides, I simply unlock them, and I can either click and press delete, or I can drag a box across them and press delete. If you don't have the properties panel, for instance, you're on an earlier version of Illustrator, you can go to View, Guides, and all those same options are right here. Let's convert an object into a guide. For instance, let's say I wanted to use a circle as a guide in Illustrator. I could draw a circle out. I have it selected right now, and I simply go up to View, Guides, Make Guides. The keyboard shortcut for this is Command 5 or Control 5 on Windows. Now it's converted that circle into an editable guide. So if I lock my guides, so now they're locked, I can't select it. Whenever I go to draw something, I can have it snapped to that guide. Now let's talk about the grid. If I go ahead and just delete that, and I'll unlock my guides and delete that guide. The grid is this second button right here. Whenever we click that, it will show this gray non-printing grid. We can use this to create our artwork aligned in certain ways. We can use it to make better guides. It's very useful. To modify this grid, Illustrator preferences Guides and Grid. Within this, we can change the color of our grid. I just use gray, the style, and how regularly we have grid lines. So for instance, if I have a 500 by 500 document, maybe I want a grid line every 50 pixels, and then I would choose the number of subdivisions within that grid line. So if there's every 50 pixels I have a grid line, let's say I want a grid line every 5 pixels, so I do 10, and I say OK. So now it's made every 50 points right here. So 50 by 50. So it's divided this into 10 parts. I can still drag guides out and try and line them up. If I want it to be more precise though, I simply have to turn on grid snapping, which is right here. With that on, as I drag a guide out, it's going to snap to the grid. Same with any shapes that I draw while grid snapping is on, it will snap to the different grid points that I've built. To turn off the grid, I simply click here, and to turn off grid snapping, I click there. So now that I've clicked in those two places, grid snapping is off, and I'm free to move my things around.